My wife cheated on me with my cousin and had a baby. My family kept this secret for years, and now they want back into my life after seeing my success. Please bear with me as I explain this entire situation because there's a lot of background to cover. I'm a 44-year-old man married for 10 years. My 41-year-old wife and I have been together for 13 years. We're happy with our lives and have an 8-year-old son. However, this isn't my first marriage. I was previously married at 22, but sadly, for reasons I didn't fully understand at the time, the marriage ended in divorce 3 years later. My ex-wife, whom I'll call Amy, and I had been together since middle school. We were essentially childhood sweethearts. After graduating college and securing stable careers, we decided to get married. Initially, everything between us was great, but after a few years, something changed. Despite my efforts to reignite the spark, she seemed distant and uninterested. Just weeks before our 3rd anniversary, Amy handed me divorce papers, saying she was done. I tried everything to save our marriage, but she claimed she no longer loved me. I wanted a better explanation, but that was all she offered. I was devastated, but there was nothing I could do. I didn't want to drag out the divorce and make things harder for both of us, so I reluctantly agreed to move forward. Because we had minimal shared assets, the process was straightforward. Once the divorce was finalized, Amy moved away, cutting off all contact. Strangely, my family also started to distance themselves from me around the same time. Neither my parents nor my sister reached out to check on me during that tough period. When I tried to contact them, I discovered I'd been blocked everywhere. Even when I visited in person, they wouldn't let me in. This rejection hit me hard. I was already going through a rough time, and their sudden coldness made it worse. For a while, I was completely lost. I quit my job and stayed home for months, unable to do anything. Thankfully, I had supportive friends who encouraged me to get back on my feet. They were there for me when my family wasn't. Eventually, I decided to pursue my long-held dream of opening a restaurant. During my marriage, I'd put it off to focus on saving money and ensuring stability for Amy and me. But now, with no one else to consider, I went for it. My friends helped me pitch to investors, and with their support, I developed a business plan. A few years after the divorce, I opened my first restaurant. It took 4 years of hard work to rebuild my life, but I did it. 2 years after the restaurant opened, I met my current wife at a friend's event. She complimented my restaurant, and we started talking. After 3 years of dating, I proposed, ready to give love another chance. 10 years later, we're happily married with an amazing son. Over the past decade, my business flourished. What started as a single restaurant has grown into a successful hospitality chain. I'm now the CEO of a company that operates multiple hotels and restaurants. We're even planning to expand beyond the state. It's been a long and difficult journey, but I'm proud of what I've accomplished. Recently, I gave a televised interview to share my story, feeling like it was a milestone of success. What I didn't expect was for my estranged family to see it and suddenly decide to reach out after over 2 decades of silence. 3 days after the interview aired, they showed up at my workplace unannounced. When my receptionist informed me that my family was waiting in the lobby, I was confused. At first, I thought she meant my wife and son, which didn't make sense since my son was at school and my wife was at work. But then she clarified, it was my parents and sister. I was stunned. I hadn't seen or heard from them in over 20 years. I told the receptionist to ask them to leave, saying I was busy and couldn't see them at the moment. However, they caused a scene, insisting on waiting until I came out. Not wanting to escalate things further or involve security, I reluctantly went to the lobby to address the situation. When I saw them, they acted as if no time had passed. They immediately began praising my accomplishments, congratulating me on the success I discussed in my interview. It felt strange, hearing them gush about my achievements as though they'd been supportive all along. They even mentioned seeing the photos of my wife and son that were featured in the interview, expressing a sudden desire to meet them. As they spoke, it became clear they were trying to reconnect as though nothing had happened. They even chastised me for not trying harder to stay in touch after my divorce. I decided to let them talk, hoping I might finally learn the truth about why they abandoned me all those years ago. What they revealed left me in shock. Amy had been cheating on me, with my cousin, Carl. My parents had known about the affair and even helped cover it up. Their reasoning? Carl's father, my uncle, was my dad's boss and a prominent figure in the family business. They didn't want to jeopardize their relationship with him, so they sided with Amy and Carl instead of me. Apparently, Amy became pregnant during the affair, but my family kept it a secret from me. They said my uncle demanded that no one tell me about the pregnancy. He even insisted they cut off all communication with me to ensure his grandson, my daughter, was raised without my involvement. They complied, claiming they didn't want to risk upsetting my uncle or losing their place in the family. Hearing this, everything finally made sense: the sudden distance, the lack of support during my divorce, and why no one from my family stayed in touch. But it didn't make it any easier to accept. They had chosen loyalty to my uncle over their own son and brother. Worse, they had knowingly kept me from my daughter, who had grown up believing Carl was her father. By the end of their explanation, I was furious. They expected forgiveness simply because they decided it was time to reconnect after seeing my success. But I couldn't overlook 20 years of betrayal and lies. I told them to leave. They protested, claiming they only wanted to make amends, but I wasn't interested. When they refused to go, I called security to escort them out. As they were being removed, they begged me to reconsider, insisting they had no other choice at the time. But in my mind, they did have a choice, they just chose wrong. I told them I didn't want to see or hear from them again. Update 1. It's been over a week since that encounter. My wife and I decided to ignore my family's attempts to reach out. For the first few days, they lingered outside my workplace, sent countless emails, and bombarded me with social media messages. Their tone shifted to apologetic, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Thankfully, they've stopped showing up in person. Their absence has made it easier to focus on my own emotional recovery. While I feel a twinge of guilt for shutting them out, I know it's the right decision. No apology can undo the pain they caused by abandoning me when I needed them most. The other issue weighing on me is my daughter. During their visit, my parents revealed where she attends college and shared her name. My assistant found her social media profiles, but I haven't reached out yet. I'm torn about how, or even if, I should introduce myself to her. She's an adult now, and I have no idea how she'd react to discovering I'm her biological father. Amy's involvement complicates things further. I have no desire to speak with her, but I worry she might interfere if I try to contact my daughter. My wife has been supportive throughout this, and we've discussed the possibility of reaching out. For now, I'm still deciding the best way to proceed. Update 2. After much deliberation and encouragement from my wife, we decided to move forward and contact my daughter. Waiting for the perfect moment was pointless. It was clear that ripping off the band-aid was the only way. Since she lives in another state, we thought it would be best to reach out via social media first, instead of showing up unexpectedly. We crafted a message on Instagram, carefully explaining who I was and how I fit into her life. I kept the tone respectful and concise, not wanting to overwhelm her. Now, we're waiting for a response. It's an emotionally charged situation for everyone involved, and I'm fully aware it will take time for her to process the news. I feel fortunate to have my wife's unwavering support during this incredibly complicated chapter. While we focus on my daughter, my parents have stopped showing up at my workplace. They did, however, send a long email apologizing for everything and expressing their desire to reconcile. They even promised not to contact me again unless I initiate it. While I'm relieved they've backed off for now, I can't shake the deep hurt they caused. Their betrayal runs too deep, and I don't see myself forgiving them anytime soon, if ever. For now, my priority is my daughter. I've learned more about her through her social media, and I'm eager to connect with her if she's open to it. I haven't told my son about her yet because I don't want to raise his hopes prematurely. If things go well, I hope he'll get the chance to meet her as a sister. I'm feeling a whirlwind of emotions, but I know this is something I need to do. Update 3. 2 weeks after sending the message, I finally received a reply from my daughter. She had confronted her mother about my message and learned that I am, in fact, her biological father. She was shocked and hurt, understandably so, because she had believed Carl was her father for her entire life. In her response, she said she wanted to meet me and my family. She also shared that she's not on good terms with Amy or Carl at the moment. It seems they initially tried to deny everything, but Amy eventually admitted the truth when pressed. My daughter expressed a desire to know me, which was more than I could have hoped for. Since she doesn't have the means to travel to us, my wife and I decided to fly out to meet her this weekend. I'm nervous but excited. This is a monumental moment for both of us, and I'm determined to make it count. Meanwhile, the rest of my family hasn't taken the news well. My uncle, upon learning that I'd contacted my daughter, has turned on my parents, blaming them for the situation. My father, despite being independent of his brother now, still fears his disapproval. He's been begging me to assure my uncle that he and Carl had no role in my discovery, but I have no interest in getting involved. They all kept this secret from me for 20 years, I don't owe them anything. Update 4. I met my daughter today, and it was one of the most emotional experiences of my life. At first, it was awkward, with both of us unsure of what to say. But as we started talking, the tension eased, and we found common ground. Despite everything she's been through, she's an incredibly kind, mature, and thoughtful young woman. She shared that she's angry with Amy and Carl for deceiving her all these years, but she doesn't plan to cut them off completely. She's their only child, and she feels a sense of obligation to maintain some relationship with them. However, she's clear that she needs space to process everything and rebuild trust on her own terms. We spent hours talking and getting to know each other. She also met my wife and son, and they hit it off surprisingly well. It was heartwarming to see my family beginning to connect with her. During dinner, she mentioned how my parents had stayed in touch with her growing up, which she always found odd given their tenuous connection. Now she understands why, and it has changed how she views them as well. I feel a deep sense of gratitude and hope after meeting her. While there's a lot of pain and betrayal to work through on both sides, I'm optimistic about building a relationship with her. For the first time in decades, I feel like I'm reclaiming something precious that was taken from me. As for the rest of my family, I have no intention of reconnecting with them anytime soon. Their betrayal is still too raw, and I can't forgive them for keeping me from my daughter. For now, my focus is on nurturing this new bond and creating something positive out of the ashes of the past. Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe and turn on notifications to be the first to have radish and real stories with you. Have a great day.